So hi everyone. Hope you found the first session interesting. That was a fantastic start to the tech gathering. Delighted to be joined by Joe Banks, Laura Stevens, and Steve Edwards today. So I think the best thing to kick off before we get into the subject about things coming up in 2021 and learnings from 2020, ask people to introduce themselves. So Joe, can we start with you, please?
Yes, Joe from the Launchpad programme at Falmouth University. We're an incubation programme seeking to drive new tech startups in the region.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Laura's back with us. So Laura, I'll come to you now then.
I'm Laura Stevens. I'm the Centre Director at Future Space. We are an innovation centre located on the campus of the University of West of England in Bristol. And we have about 50 startup science and technology companies. We have a fairly tight gateway policy, so we welcome companies who are in sectors such as robotics and automation, life sciences, IoT and cybersecurity, advanced engineering. And we offer a lot of support to our companies through things like a network of advisors, a founders forum, peer networks, information on grants and funding, and we are the link to the university for all of our companies.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. And Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Edwards, the Director of SecSquared in Bristol, which is part of Bristol University, and also part of SecSquared Partnership, which is 5 university-backed incubators across Bath, Bristol, Southampton, and very similar to Future Space in terms of tech-based businesses. We've got about 80 members. Similar thing, lots of community and network activity, a huge range of mentors and advisors, training and through workshops, and a lot of interactive activity, and then a big program of bespoke individual coaching, either through entrepreneur presidents or through mentors, which we think is probably the most valuable part, to actually provide bespoke, tailored support to help tech businesses grow.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you for everyone. So just so the whole group know, in terms of those in the audience, Joe has posted a poll. So one of the things we're asking is about optimism for 2021, because today's New Year, New Heights tech gathering is about being positive, looking ahead, and some of the projects and things that we're doing, but also recognizing some of the challenges and uncertainty. But we've put a poll in there, which Fabrizio would probably shake his head at in terms of what we've how we've framed it. But how optimistic are you for your business in 2021? Very, fairly, so, not very, or not optimistic. So people do take that, and then we'll reflect on that later on. And that's just a random snapshot but we're a group today, so that's would be great if you can do that. If you can see the polls tab just to the right of the chat, and then come back onto the chat, and of course do use that. So I think, should we start, Laura? We'll start with you. There's a bit of background noise, so we might need to use our mutes when we're not talking, just to be aware of that. And I'll do that as well. But Laura, how is 2021 looking for your cohort then, your companies at the moment? Is it mixed bag? Is it positivity? What's the situation as you see it?
Well, I would say that it's pretty steady and hopeful. I would say we stayed open throughout the pandemic for our companies. We have a lot of companies that build things at Future Space. They're robotics companies. They're building robotic arms, or they work in the lab. So we've stayed open throughout the pandemic, and we've had over 90% occupancy pretty much the whole time. I think this is because, perhaps like a number of other companies in the kind of Bristol tech bubble, we have a lot of companies, startup companies, that are grant funded or have financing in place. And so they have a more predictable future than, say, companies that are trading, that are facing a lot of difficulties. So a lot of our companies have won grants or secured funding over the past, throughout 2020, and even in over the last couple of months, nearly £1 million worth of funding. So I think that I see that there's a lot of hopeful signs out there. There's a variety of churn. Companies come and go all the time in an innovation center, and we've continued to see that. But what we are seeing is a lot of life sciences companies knocking on the doors, looking for lab space, looking for workshops. And I see a lot of, there's a big pivot going on into new sectors, new markets. And I suppose there's always winners and losers in a crisis. And in the tech area, I think that there's a lot of companies that are seeing opportunity. So I guess I'm an optimist.
Great. Yeah, me too. No, that sounds good. And as you say, there's companies that sort of focused on very specific pieces. You know, just probably cracking on with that. And Joe, from your side, in terms of the those early stage pre-incubation tech teams at Launchpad, how are they faring through this period?
Yeah, I'd say generally very positive. It is a mixed picture depending on what our teams and early stage companies are focusing on. Some are developing products to take to market in some of the sectors that have been heavily affected by the pandemic. So they've had to find different ways to test their early stage products. For example, one working in the museum sector has had to pivot the product and find a way of testing outside. But in general, because we are bringing individuals together and creating new teams, and in their first year with us at Launchpad, they are technically students and within an HE environment and have that wrap around. They've had that slight cushion, which has been good, but also because they are early stage, they are able to react to what is happening and look at what they're doing and look at the short-term and the longer-term effects of impact in the wider world and on what they're trying to do, and fact that into their product. So I think actually that very early market validation stage of a business development, our cohorts from last year have been able to look at that and react to that and seek all the guidance and support from ourselves and the wider community support to react to that. Yeah,
that makes sense. I can see that, and and some of those companies, early stage companies, is probably good timing because they are doing the validation and learning about what some of those things that are happening out there in the markets right now, some of the trends. So, so Toby just put in the chat recent report, Lassian, how working from home during COVID has reduced the opportunities for innovation. So yes, that's pretty something we've all talked about in terms of those kind of serendipitous moments, there's kind of bumping into each other, and that's what tech hubs are all about. Part of that into the people coalescing and gathering. I mean, Steve, how are you seeing sort of, at the start of 2021 in terms of the companies you're working with, how this is playing out? Are there positive signs there that you can see as well? You're mute. You're politely on mute, but now we can't hear you.
I have nothing to say on 2021.
Come on.
I'm mute. I'm an optimist. I like to see that the poll already is being optimistic, and I think I've always said when I started working with startups rather than working in the corporate world, if you work with startups, you naturally become an optimist because you see challenges and then you recognise ways to overcome it. So I think that's just the general world we're in, which is fantastic. Things change, but I think there's huge opportunities. As an incubator, we're here to help businesses grow and develop, and it's always been based on a physical presence. But in actual fact, going virtual last year and putting our entire program online is incredibly valuable because it now gives us more scope, more range, and more opportunity to help more people and to connect better. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in terms of. I was just talking to the SatSquare partnership earlier in the week. There may be a mentor in Southampton who is a specialist in one particular sector. We wouldn't have been able to tap into them before, and now we can. So there's definitely huge benefits from that point of view. I think there have been definite opportunities in terms of pivoting. So we've had a number of our members who have seen new markets and new opportunities through COVID, either through the requirements of helping people who can't get into physical places, so autonomy. We're doing that. Gap Squared have changed their workforce consultancy to help people. Lots of organisations having to change what they do in terms of employment because of COVID, and therefore the consultancy model changes to meet that need. So there is a lot of opportunity for early stage businesses, and I don't see that there's any barrier for us as an incubator to help them.
Brilliant. And that point of in terms of our tech hubs sort of shifting, thinking about the virtual approach, and building that into the offering. I'm sure it will evolve, into that sort of blended mix. The Tech Software Startup Studio program, that emerged last year in response to the pandemic, and it's entirely virtual. And we're in double figures of applicants already into that first 6-week program. We've had applicants from Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, Bristol, and Bath so far, and that's quite exciting in terms of, as you say, if it sort of broadens it has to broaden the kind of what you have to deliver as tech hubs, but also the reach then increases, and then there's still going to be that need to kind of find the experts, cluster, use the UE facilities and researchers and others. But it actually, if the pipeline broadens and we're getting to companies at an earlier stage and a wider reach, that's something that the Southwest is a funny shape and sticks out from the edge of the country. Is probably quite an exciting thing.
I just say it was interesting. I think we sort of touched on it a lot over the last 6 to 9 months about the Southwest is a great place to live, and therefore naturally, if you're not held to being in the tech arena in London, that there is a natural pull down here. I think I haven't seen it massively, but I certainly heard a lot about it. But we certainly had an example last year where someone was looking for space came to Bristol looking for space, and they had a big established London tech business which they're looking to relocate, and realised that they didn't have to be in London anymore. They put a poll out to their staff, and the 3 Bs of places they would like to move to: Brighton, Barcelona, or Bristol. Which is interesting, because those are quite cool places to be associated with. But in actual fact, you don't even need to be in cities anymore. And I think that's the exciting bit, is you can go all the way down to Penzance, wherever you want to be. If we can do all of this virtually, you can have a quality of life and accessibility to incubation.
Yeah, and of course, the other really interesting thing about it is that all 3 begin with B, Steve. So that's a conundrum in itself. But yeah, no, absolutely, take the point there. And I think we are seeing that, and that's got a long way to play out, I guess. But that's about attracting talent, funds. Say again.
Bodmin, clearly Bodmin is going to be the
Bodmin. There's so many. Okay, and I mean, Laura, one thing you talked about there is winners and losers, and the amount of innovation there's been and pivoting these past sort of 10 months. How do we ensure we kind of learn from that? Because in a time of crisis and tumultuous change, that happens, and it sort of accelerates the digital shove that some people have had, and then innovation and collaboration and just getting on and talking to people and solving problems. We want to capture the best of that, don't we? In terms of going forward, is that something that's doable, or is it inevitable it will start to kind of level off a bit as we return to some kind of normality?
I think that I agree very much with Steve that actually throughout this kind of strange period when we've all been, on Teams and Zoom the whole year, there's actually been a lot of new collaboration that wasn't happening before that is happening, both between companies, between people in the region. So, being part of a regional task force that talks about what can we do to help our companies, across the region or something like that. So I think actually there's been a lot of good that has come from this. I think that, and other people saying, our tech hubs, do we want to encourage people to come back to them? And I think the answer is yes, because within teams, within companies, it's still really important that they get together as a team. And I think that's been one of the challenges for companies over the past year, that it's not the same to innovate and have great ideas in this kind of forum. Ideas really do happen when people come together. And I think that the hubs do provide a huge amount of support for people in meeting other people, in gaining information, and being connected to a community. So I think that all of that, I think also the trends are the things that I'm seeing that we can do to help people more as we move into this brave new world is increasing flexibility. That's what companies need right now, because everybody is pivoting and changing so quickly. So, and so I think the more flexibility we can offer, the better. Companies, I think some of the companies that we have that have completely pivoted their businesses from one direction to another, where they're looking at automating testing processes for the NHS, and they weren't all in the health industry before. There's a lot of interesting people that are winning are the people that are managing to pivot really quickly, I think. I'm not sure I answered your question.
No. I think you did, and then expanded on it. I think one of the things, one of the really interesting learnings for me, and talking to some other kind of business leaders around this, in terms of, we've learned to look beyond our own borders of our country and our previous networks. And I think some of those things will play out in the physical space as well, in terms of actually, wow, yes, look at all the things that we have been doing in terms of geography doesn't matter quite so much. We can find people, we can connect, we can work with other organizations in different ways, and bring talent in different ways. But those tech hubs actually then, that reinforces that point, because you're then putting, people into, these amazing hubs with these specialisms and with the links through, and the entrepreneurs and the scientists and the researchers and the machine learning aspect and all the other bits that I was mentioned earlier. So I think those things won't go away once you have kind of looked out a bit more beyond your own kind of this is what I was doing before. Now, I think there's been big fundamental changes, which I think will play out well in that kind of mix of physical and virtual. I mean, Joe, Launchpad obviously is part of Falmouth University. So one of your things, you are very focused on bringing, I guess, talent in from well beyond the region, attracted to Falmouth with the courses there, and then from that the businesses emerge, I guess. And that's part of the remit. And Steve mentioned about attracting talent to the region. I guess Falmouth has a key part to play.
Yes, I mean that's a big part of our programme is to utilise the talent already in the region. It's not just about bringing talent in, but we also have the ability to do that. And that's a big part of the model and how we start our companies, is to bring entrepreneurial driven people with innovative and technical skills together, and get them thinking about different ways of resolving problems, responding to opportunities, and developing new businesses as a result of that. So we can attract people in, and that's a great way to really kickstart a new business. But I think actually attracting that talent it's not just about us doing it for our program. I think it's about a bigger regional picture, and all of us promoting what's happening here in terms of existing businesses, in terms of our tech hubs, our tech infrastructure, our innovation centres, all the different businesses and what's happening, the opportunities, Spaceport, Cornwall, Goonhilly and other areas in the region. All of that collectively actually gives us more of a presence. And I think that's really good at attracting people and making people, as we have seen over the last couple of years, sit up and realise what's actually happening in our region.
Yeah. I think that's really, really exciting. Obviously, Tech Southwest is sort of trying its best to help with that. But if you look at, what is happening, the tech hubs working together, talking to each other, because you need a thriving ecosystem. You need Tech Swindon, Digital Taunton, Software Cornwall. You need the tech hubs. You need the tech companies. We need to kind of celebrate that. Understand our kind of, what kind of unites us, and all the different specialisms within that. Because we know we are a great place to kind of live, and where people want to come here. But you've got to show, ambitious people, those people with talent. You've got to show all these different things that are going on and interconnected, which is really hard because it's sort of nebulous and it's an ecosystem and it's evolving all the time. But actually, I think there is real commonality between the leaders of our tech hubs and key tech organisations around that. They're really proud about growing tech in the Southwest, and that I think is a really exciting opportunity. So looking at the poll, 96% say very or fairly optimistic, 4% so. So I think that is an indication that tech is resilient, tech is optimistic, tech is about focusing on the future, not the past, and that definitely kind of you can see is playing out there. Just on polls, one thing I'm going to mention, and Joe may have already put this in the chat, but if not, we are running a regional sort of tech survey at the moment, so do please take that if you haven't. And at the next tech gathering, we're going to be looking at that and ask quite a lot of detailed questions around in terms of the economic situation, talent, kind of things tech companies, tech leaders are looking for in terms of support. So do please take that if you have time, and because that's running, I think, through to the end of this week and into early next week, and then that's it on that. So Steve, coming back to you in terms of you've talked about we all have talked about companies have had to pivot and had to change. The tech hubs then looking ahead, that mixture of virtual and physical space, you're already kind of, I guess, changing things, moving to virtual programs. Looking ahead for 2021 in terms of predictions, how that might play out in terms of for Set Squared and your partners, are you able to frame that for us?
I think what's been interesting, and Laura mentioned it in terms of flexibility, what we've seen is going fully virtual is great and easy to do, but in actual fact, people still benefit from being together every now and again, and face-to-face meetings, particularly around certain parts of working together. So idea generation, or having a day when you're all in the office together, 1 day a week or 1 day a fortnight, is incredibly valuable because there's a human interaction.
Do you think there will be tech companies who perhaps weren't connected to the hubs before, but are saying, actually, we had a standard office somewhere, and we miss the kind of that connectivity, but we only want to be there 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and we want a creative space, or we want a different type of space. Are you having those conversations? Is that going to happen? Because that could open the doors to more.
Yeah, so we've evolved. Some of our offices are available for a day office for a day, rather than you buying a couple of days a week. You can say, right, I'm going to book 2 days in a month, and then you can get the whole team in there. You can have a day when you actually all work together. You have more conversations, more, just general catch-ups, or you might have an idea session, or you might work through something specific, and then the rest of the time they're at home. But they don't need it all the time. They don't need it. And I think that level of flexibility is one of the key things we need to do. The other thing is, it's just brilliant being together. And we had the opportunity to have a couple of showcases in the autumn, having been locked down and not got together for 6 months. And it was amazing to have, we had 16 women founders for our Enterprising Women cohort pitching in a showcase. The energy and the excitement, and it was just amazing. And everyone walked away going, right, this is just fantastic. And we forget, we get used to sitting here like this and going, well, we can just tick things off in a very rational way. There is an awful lot of energy and emotion required to get all this stuff done, because it's hard work, and therefore being together is incredibly valuable. And I think we forget that, and it's a big ambition for us this year, when we can, to really try and do those events when we can do them safely and together. Because my point about optimism this year is, I think at some point we will get unlocked, whatever the expression is. And I think the pent-up excitement, it's going to be amazing when we're let out. And I think it's going to be a lot of partying, a lot of fun, a lot of it getting together. And I think that is there to look forward to.
Yeah, no, it's like the small child sitting at tea and has to wait for everyone to finish, and then off they go, times 1,000. No, and I think you can see in the chat as well, that kind of desire to, Andrew saying, currently working with a client, has a virtual Friday 5:15 down the pub. It's the social, it's the human, as well as the work, isn't it? All mixed up. You cannot separate that. And people talking, Stuart and Toby and Jane Franklin, about that hybrid model and how that is working. So when you put the tech hubs into that environment, that when it gets really exciting. I mean, Laura, is that part of your plans as well, in terms of sort of future space and the flexibility of the space and the companies you could be working with?
Yeah, for certain. I mean, I think that some companies that left very early on in the lockdown last March and April, they were saying, we can't stay because we can't afford the space, but we still want to remain connected. And so so as a result of that, we launched a new membership program to keep people connected to the community. I think the thing that I noticed immediately upon lockdown last year was that when we launched our Founders Forum, for example, suddenly participating, because they really felt the need to be a part of a community. So I think, if anything, what this has shown us is that people really do value being a part of a community. And I do think the flexibility, what Steve was saying about renting an office for a day, that is what I think as tech hubs we're all going to be needing to do, because the world of work is different now, and the more ways that we can involve people in coming in and getting together, because they might not want all of their people in every single day. And for many people, I think it's been a relief not to commute every day, so there's been some positives and negatives, but we need to continue to provide more and more support and offer all these different options for the way that people can come together. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think there's going to be or maybe it was Steve. Yes, it was Steve who was saying that there's going to be there's this huge pent up enthusiasm in demand. And I think the second half of the year is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, no, I really hope people are right around that, and feel it as well. Thank you. And yeah, and you can see it in the chat as well. And Andy Doyle, once lockdown is over, the idea of setting up a hub is high on my radars. And Andy's based in Totnes and is talking to other companies. And Andy, you need to hurry up. You've been talking about that for about 6 months now, so you need to take it to that next stage, which is really hard when when the times are uncertain. But get on with it. Eric, that's good. I know. And another thought about these events. We didn't do these events until the pandemic, because Tech Southwest were very aware it happened at a very local level. We had all the local clusters, and we did the Tech Southwest Awards, but people don't want to drive. People don't drive to too many events. And this is now, we're in double figures of we do these every month, and you get 30, 40, 50 people gathering, talking, sharing. And I think for one of these, actually, we should just let everyone just set up sessions and jump on, and everyone can talk. We have like 10 sessions at once, because the chat has been pretty darn good and speedy. So sort of I've missed things, and I've missed questions, but I think that desire to connect and collaborate and share and learn from each other and express our feelings about how we're getting through this and looking ahead, and that mixture of the personal and the business, all wrapped up. It's all wrapped up these days, and I think that has got to be a positive in terms of how it emerges at the other side, and that desire to connect, collaborate, work together. I think is a real exciting piece. So finally, coming to you, Joe. I mean, it'd be really nice maybe to hear about some of the companies you've got emerging, perhaps ones we haven't heard of yet from Falmouth, and the types of, it's a question I should have asked everyone really, but we're going to run out of time. Might have, to give a flavour of some of the, I know gaming is a big part of the community down there, but perhaps I hope I'll come to Steve and Laura as well. So I'd be thinking about 2 or 3 companies that you should be flagging up and telling the audience. But let's start with Joe.
Yeah, I mean, we've got companies at all stages, so. Just thinking about the ones on a positive note moving forward that have sort of pivoted and changed direction and really responded to 2020 and moving into 2021. We've got a company called Relove, which is a charity sector market platform to supplement physical shops, which was obviously an issue in 2020 for many charities and their income streams. Codices won TV Transformers and a national broadcasting pitch event, and have done well in 2020, sort of building on the interactive entertainment sector.
And best startup at the Tech Southwest Awards, of course, Joe. You were going to mention, weren't you?
Absolutely, yes. I'm glad you put that one in for us.
Lineup shortlist.
GlasData obviously going from strength to strength with the agricultural data visualization platform. Many partnerships and collaborations opening up with GlasData if you follow them, and then some of our early teams who haven't even sort of gone on to incorporate yet, looking at gaming platforms, AI, and the construction sector. Again, a heavily hit sector, but one that is looking for productivity gains and efficiency. So new moves, new opportunities in that sector are great. So yeah, we have a number, and they're all really responding, and I think it's the strength of the entrepreneurial spirit that's really pushing them forward.
Brilliant, Joe. Thank you. I love hearing about these new companies that are emerging and entrepreneurs, and what that and the potential around that. We've got till 11:30 at the very latest in terms of the last half hour is around networking for those who can stay. So I think there's enough time to ask the same question to Steve first of all, and to give us a flavour of some of the companies that you're working with right now or you're excited about, and then I'll come to Laura.
Couple of themes. Immersive tech. So some really interesting stuff going out at the moment. Reality Check, condensed reality just joined us this week. Great stuff, and I think there's lots of health stuff, and we talked about there being the move out of hospitals for health solutions is been really important over the last year. Oco Health is eye care, get you better, similar things, so the healthcare type stuff. I'm just going to say very quickly, in case we don't get enough time, one thing that we're really keen, and we recognise, we talked about it before, was a gap in provision is about pre-incubation. There is lots of pre-incubation support in places in and around the whole region. I think we're very keen, I mentioned it with Laura before, very keen to try and develop that. Marty Reed at Engine Shed is looking to seeing if we can create collaboration across anybody to try and bring together some resources and availability to try and create something that actually becomes a little bit stickier drives that. So I just thought I'd mention that here and put it out.
That's a really good point, Stephen. I think, I know, so to you and Laura ahead of this, into that startup studio piece that Tech Southwest is just one small part of that. But for that, we've it's interesting. 2/3 of the companies applying for that are health tech at the moment, which is really interesting in itself. But that, how we kind of join the dots and feed those companies through, because there's some very early stage companies there that we've haven't seen before, didn't know existed, and are sort of applying to that, that early stage pre-incubation is, now is the time for it, isn't it? In terms of the innovation, the opportunity, the shifts into the markets and what is happening. So that's a really good point. And I urge everyone to kind of, have a look at our fantastic tech hubs and have a look at the Startup Studio as well, in terms of, what is out there, the support that's out there, and have the conversations. Now is the time to have those conversations. So thank you, and some exciting companies there that you're working with in Immersive Tech. Yeah, Immersive Tech, it's really interesting. A lot is happening in Bristol. You've got the Dome in Plymouth. There's, again, as a region, there's some, some real sort of synergies across that space. So Laura, it'd be great to hear a couple of kind of highlights or things that you're excited about in terms of some of the tech companies that you're working with at Future Space.
I'm rather excited by the companies that combine kind of robotics and automation and life sciences. I think that's a really exciting field. So one of our companies who emerged out of the BRL and the hardware incubator, they're working on COVID testing that involves automation and robotics, and they're working with Southmead Hospital, and that's quite an interesting project. We have quite a lot of kind of COVID-related, innovate-funded companies, such as another one that's working on a pregnancy-style COVID test. That's a really interesting one, and we've had a lot of graduates who are not necessarily related to the. When I say graduates, they've kind of outgrown us and have moved on premises and moved on to bigger and better things. And one of the companies was called Inheriting Earth. It's now called Matter, and they're involved in reducing microplastics in the oceans. Very exciting companies. So that's a very different field. But I think that there are a lot of really interesting tech companies that are emerging from all of these tech hubs. And I think one of the other things that I think would be really interesting is more and more collaboration. And this is happening, I think, because of this space, more and more collaboration happening across the region, across tech hubs. Because we have a lot of companies that could probably benefit from mixing with other companies across the region. And I think that's the next step that would be really exciting. We're building our own really exciting communities within each of our hubs, but it's across the region that could be really powerful.
And I think that, the more we just join the dots, that was when Tech Southwest started 6 years ago. That was the first people. I thought it was going to be an external branding exercise to position the Southwest and look to the rest of the country or the rest of the world. And then I said, no, let's just join the dots and work out who we are and what's going on, because we don't know, and that's. We just keep doing that. Just keep joining the dots, and then through that, good things can happen and spin out. Fantastic. Well, look, Laura, thank you. Joe, thank you. Steve, as well. Thank you so much for being part of another really interesting discussion. Lots of chat as well. So thank you to the audience. We've got networking for those who have time and can stay around. And do use that. Basically, for those who haven't before, you just click on the networking button on the left-hand side, and it randomly puts you into a kind of vortex, and then you pop out face-to-face with someone who's in this session, and you talk for, I think it's limited to 3 minutes, and then it puts you with someone else. So it's fun, and I think Joe, our organizer, calls it the the tech tumble dryer, in terms of you never know who's going to pop up. But do that, talking about join the dots. Do that. I've just put my LinkedIn in the chat for those people who want to connect with me, and for those who aren't Tech Southwest members, it's free to join. We have the Tech Southwest free membership, so do sign up. You start getting the Friday emails and other things, and we're always looking for news and events and activities just to share, because this joining the dots actually, this period, this kind of where geography doesn't matter quite so much, these kind of things, we can do these things, and I know people are super busy as well, so they're the specialisms, the interests, the niches, we can get that out to people and connect with people. So thanks to Stuart, Emily, and Fabrizio earlier, to Laura, Steve, and Joe. I'll see people networking. look out for the next tech gathering. I think it's late February, when it's all about the big survey reveal. We'll have experts looking at that and the data and what that tells us about the region and 2021 and our tech companies. And thank you. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks, everyone. See you in the networking.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Cheers, Joe. Cheers, Laura. Cheers, Steve.